Who are you, really? I mean, it sounds like such a simple question, doesn't it?
It does. Deceptively simple.
Yeah. So today on the deep dive, we're kind of digging into something that challenges a core assumption. The idea that maybe this self, the thing we identify with, maybe it's not the solution, maybe it's actually the problem.
Exactly. The source material we're diving into today puts forward this pretty radical idea that this self could be at the root of, well, almost everything: anxiety, personal struggles.
And that our responses are deeply programmed, like really deeply.
That's the core of it. So our mission today is basically to unpack what the self actually is. How are our behaviors, our beliefs really shaped?
And importantly, what does that understanding do for you, like practically? Can it help navigate daily life, manage anxiety, break patterns?
That's the goal, to find the practical leverage in this understanding.
Okay, so let's just jump in with an example from the sources because it really highlights how weird this can get.
Yeah.
Imagine someone, right, with chronic neck pain, the kind you get from, scrolling on your phone nonstop.
Uh-huh. Relatable for many, I suspect.
Totally. And the actual solution, eventually, from a doctor. Simple stuff. Exercise, less screen time. Makes sense.
Right. The practical fix.
But before they got there, the advice they received, just bizarre, superstitious things, like getting an inverted leg treatment.
An inverted leg treatment.
Yeah, from a reverse birth child. I mean, it sounds absolutely ridiculous.
Wow. Okay. It's out there.
But it perfectly shows this disconnect, right? We look for these complicated, external, sometimes even magical solutions.
When the issue, according to this source, originates internally, from the self.
Exactly. It makes you think, if the self is the root cause, what does that mean for how we chase success or happiness?
Well, it suggests we might be running in circles, doesn't it? Chasing our own tail. It really challenges that idea that, success, failure, achievements. It's all down to me, the separate self.
That really does make you pause. Because we're always asking questions for ourselves, aren't we? How can I get this? What should I do? But how often do we actually stop and ask, wait, what is this I, this self that's doing all the asking and wanting?
Almost never, right. And this leads to a really critical point in the source material. If the self is the core issue, then looking outside for answers, asking others for advice, it's often, well, pointless.
Pointless. That sounds harsh.
Maybe, but the reasoning is that others rarely have a truly deep invested interest in solving your specific problems. Not really. And trying to solve someone else's problem can just create more problems anyway. It really comes back to this idea that ultimately the responsibility for figuring out your stuff, it lands squarely on you.
Okay.
If you don't understand the self that's having the problem, how can you possibly fix its issues?
It's a challenging thought. But it leads perfectly into this next bit about the illusion of a separate self. We're sort of taught you create your life.
That's the common narrative, yeah. Be the creator.
But the source pushes back hard. Think about a car, it says. Did you create the engine, the steering, the body from nothing?
No, of course not.
Or did you just, modify it? Maybe you painted it, added some features, changed the wheels. But the core thing was already there.
So a lot of what we call creation is just tinkering with what exists, modification.
Exactly.
And that's where the source really goes after some common ideas, some dogmas. It pretty much dismisses concepts like a totally separate existence for each person.
Or like a separate bank account for karma.
Precisely. Or this idea that rebirth dictates your current situation. The source basically calls this stuff nonsense or major misconception.
So no cosmic scoreboard tracking your specific good and bad deeds.
Not in this framework, no. It argues that, yes, actions have consequences. You act, you get a result. But the idea that it's tied to some unique, separate, karmic self across lifetimes, that's what's being questioned.
Okay, but then what about things like people born with serious diseases? If the self is this independent creator, how does that fit? The source tackles this, right?
It does. It directly challenges blaming it on bad karma from a past life.
Which is a common explanation in some systems.
It is. And the source goes even further, kind of provocatively. It says, imagine if your deepest, truest inner thoughts and actions were just broadcast live for a week.
Oh, wow.
How many of your relationships would survive that? The point being, nobody is truly pure or completely isolated in their inner world. We're all complex, messy.
Yeah, that's a sobering thought experiment.
And this ties into the scientific view the source presents. The body isn't something you created. It's a biological continuation.
The continuation.
Yeah, like you're literally a continuation of your parents, your grandparents. A unique mix, a permutation and combination, biologically speaking, of their genes. It just operates automatically.
So inheriting a disease isn't about something you did in this life or another one. It's part of that biological inheritance.
According to this perspective, yes. This body, this hardware we have, it arrived preloaded, you could say, pre-configured by lineage.
Speaking of hardware, I like the analogy the source is used for the mind. The brain is the hardware.
Right, the physical organ.
And the mind itself is like the brain plus language.
Yeah.
The software that gets installed later.
That's the idea. And what's really radical here is the claim that thoughts, they're effects. They're not the causes of things.
Wait, thoughts are effects, not causes. How does that work?
Well, the idea is they don't just pop into existence from some independent you. They arise from stuff that's already stored, information, conditioning, experiences, all the media you consume.
Like movies, social media.
Everything. It all goes in. And thoughts are just the output, the processing of that data.
So the example given is like if you watch a scary movie.
Yeah, and then you start thinking about ghosts or whatever. Is that you actively deciding to think about ghosts? Or is it just the information, the fear-based input playing itself out in your mind?
That's a really different way to look at it. It makes thoughts seem less personal.
Yeah.
Less self-generated.
Exactly. Less authored by you. And this ties into how our subconscious, formed by childhood, by experiences, traumas, how that really shapes our personality.
Psychologists look at that all the time, right? Early life stuff.
They do, because that's where the source argues the fundamental programming happens. Our environment, our upbringing, that's what created us in this view, not some independent self making choices from day one.
And here's that challenge for you, the listener.
Yeah.
Try to predict your very next thought without using a thought to do it.
Go on, try it.
See, your mind kind of goes blank, right? It shows how thoughts often just appear. They arise automatically.
Which naturally leads people to ask, okay, so does this mean I have zero control? Am I just a puppet?
Yeah, that's the scary part, isn't it?
It can feel that way, and the source uses strong language here, calling people largely like robots programmed by their internal data with maybe very little actual control.
Robots, that's provocative.
It is, but the flip side is this understanding isn't meant to be disempowering. Actually, it's the opposite. Because when you start to grasp this idea of programming, you can understand why people act the way they do much better. Their actions, their body language, their words. You start seeing the underlying reasons, the input that led to that output.
So it gives you a different lens for understanding others and maybe yourself too.
Exactly, with more clarity, maybe less judgment.
Okay, so this understanding, this different lens, how does it help with breaking patterns? Like, say, inheriting anxiety from your parents. You see it happen.
Well, the source suggests the crucial first step is just seeing the pattern, really observing it as it happens.
Without labeling it like, oh, this anxiety is bad, I need to stop it.
Precisely, just see it. There's that anxious response happening. Dispassionate observation, not immediate resistance or judgment.
Why is that important? Just seeing it.
Because the judgment, the resistance, often adds another layer of struggle. Seeing it clearly as it is the first step towards detachment, toward not being automatically swept away by it.
And this connects to the idea that nothing is inherently good or bad, right? Like the nuclear energy example.
Yeah, exactly. Nuclear energy can power cities or destroy them. Its value isn't intrinsic. It depends entirely on how it's used, the context, the situation.
So applying that to ourselves, our nature, our programming, it's not inherently good or bad either.
That's the argument. So trying to fundamentally change your core nature, the source uses the analogy of a fish trying to fly. It's seen as a waste of time and energy. Fighting against your fundamental programming is futile.
So don't fight it. What then?
Accept it. Accept your nature as this continuation, this product of everything that came before. And then, from that place of acceptance, learn how to act effectively. Navigate the world with the programming you have, rather than constantly battling it.
Okay, that feels potentially quite liberating, actually. Especially when you think about anxiety, that constant desire we have for control.
It's a universal human thing, isn't it? We want to control life, feel secure, and anxiety spikes when that control seems to slip away. But here, the source makes a really vital distinction. between, let's call it productive anxiety and problematic anxiety.
Productive versus problematic.
Okay.
What's the difference?
Productive anxiety is the stress response to an actual present danger or problem, an emergency.
Losing your job.
Exactly. That immediate stress kicks in your fight or flight system. It gives you energy, focus, hopefully to start searching for a new job, right? To take action.
Okay, that makes sense. Necessary stress in a way.
Right. Problematic anxiety, though, that's the stress you feel about hypothetical situations. Things that might happen but aren't happening right now. It might never happen.
The what ifs.
The what ifs, they lead to prolonged worry, often without any useful action.
So give me an example, like seeing a genuinely mad dog charging at you versus
worrying every single time you leave the house that you might encounter a mad dog, even though it's incredibly unlikely where you live.
right. Or the job example again, actually losing your job versus
Spending years agonizing about maybe losing your job one day, even if your current position is totally secure. You're just churning, stressing, but not doing anything practical because there's no actual problem to solve right now.
that constant low-level dread,
Yeah.
burning energy for nothing.
Precisely. And the source offers a beautifully simple tool for this, a practical takeaway.
Okay, I'm ready. What is it?
When a problem, a worry, a stressful thought arises, just ask yourself immediately, is this actual right now? Or is it hypothetical?
Actual or hypothetical? That's
That's
it.
the core of it. Categorize it. If it's actual, okay, maybe you need that productive anxiety energy to deal with it. If it's hypothetical, recognize it as just a thought, a what if.
And maybe don't invest so much energy in fighting a ghost.
You got it. See it for what it is, a product of the mind's processing, maybe based on past fears or future uncertainties, but not a present reality demanding immediate stressful action.
Wow. Simple, but potentially really powerful.
It can be. This whole deep dive really offers this powerful lens, doesn't it? To see ourselves maybe not as these separate, all-powerful creators.
But as complex continuations,
Yeah.
shaped by our past, our biology, our environment.
Exactly. And understanding that, it can be incredibly freeing. It leads you to ask these deeper questions. Like, if my thoughts are just effects and my actions are largely programmed, what does that really mean for free will?
That's a big one to chew on.
It is. And think about this. If maybe 90% of your worries, your anxieties, fall into that hypothetical bucket.
Yeah.
What's just one burden, one what-if worry that you could potentially shed today just by asking yourself, is this actually happening now or is it just a thought?
That's a great closing thought. A very practical challenge, just asking that simple question.
Yeah.
Actual or hypothetical.
It can shift things. It really can.
And certainly gives you a lot to think about. That distinction alone feels like a really useful tool to take away from this. It could genuinely free you up from carrying so much unnecessary stress or jumping into action when maybe observation is needed first.
Absolutely.
Well, hopefully this deep dive has given all of you listening some surprising insights, maybe shifted your perspective a bit. Definitely food for thought.